Scott just made the point.
Jeff Jefferson used to be a lot more secure, not just.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle, and in this week's three-part trifecta, we'll take a look at how the next 2 years may not be those of a lame duck president, but perhaps one of a mad duck president. In today's part one, we're going to take a look at the long tail of lawlessness that has followed Barack Obama's political career. In part two, we'll look at how his willingness to simply ignore the Constitution means worse may be in store. And speaking of worse, in our members-only part three, we'll go to the outer limits of what might be possible in the final 2 years of this long national nightmare of incompetence, arrogance, and lawlessness. So let's bring in our trifecta stalwarts, Steve Green and Scott Ott, to take a look at the wake of misconduct that has followed the current chief executive for his entire political life. Now, gents, the utter disregard for the law we saw with President Obama's granting of amnesty did not begin with the granting of amnesty. As you probably remember, of course, we can go back to the Choom Club at school, just sort of open flouting of marijuana laws, which, whether you agree with them or not, are still laws, but, you know, you could write that off as adolescence. But Steve, Barack Obama's political career began in the living room of domestic terrorist Bill Ayers. His very first campaign was won by having his opponent's divorce proceedings mysteriously made public just before the election. There were any number of strong-arm tactics and irregularities in the 2008 primaries against Hillary Clinton. There's a sweet deal he got from convicted felon Tony Rezko. His background is not exactly a field of driven snow, this Barack Obama, is it, Steve?
Well, it's funny that we're talking about his background, because if you go back far enough, and it's not all that far, the question is, what background? You know, back in the day, there were, I'm not exactly proud to say this, but there were women I might have met around last call who knew more about me then than we know about Barack Obama today after almost 6 years as the president of the United States. This is absolutely ridiculous. We don't know what he wrote at Harvard. We don't know what his grades were at Columbia. We don't know so many things about this guy except for one little thing. He thinks he's been elected to run the country, and that if Congress won't get his way, that he will simply do what he thinks is right, and right for him is, well, we don't know what right for him is really, not in any essential sense, because even after 6 years, we still don't know who this man is, Barack Obama. It's an amazing and unprecedented thing, and I'm afraid we're going to have an amazing and unprecedented last 2 years of him in office.
We'll find out about what he might do next in the next segment of Trifecta. Scotty, we've seen a lot of stuff we didn't like in the last 6 years, but it seems that it was only after his re-election that Barack Obama simply started to dictate law and kind of dare anyone to do anything about it. We all saw it last year through how he simply changed the dates and the requirements of Obamacare. He did it frequently, arbitrarily, and utterly illegally. And, of course, the country did nothing. So does it surprise you that he would then go on to take an action, namely granting of amnesty, that he himself admitted on 24 occasions that he did not have the authority for? And putting that aside, who do you think is responsible for this dictatorship? Because if he can dictate laws, I don't know what else to call it.
Well, as for who's responsible, that would be us. You know, but it was, I just read a quote today that Senator Mitch McConnell said that the President Obama doesn't seem to understand that he just got a butt kicking. And that really is the case. But in fact, I think he does understand it. And I think he understands the American people better than we do. Mm-hmm. Because as we sit here and parse the constitutionality of what the president is doing, most people don't give a rip about what the Constitution says about what he's doing. All they want to know is, do I like what he's doing or what he intends to do, or do I not like it? It really doesn't matter how it comes about. So if I'm in favor of liberalizing our immigration laws, or of making a bunch of people who came in here illegally suddenly legal, well, then that's good. I don't really care how it gets accomplished. And I think that is, you know, sometimes I wonder if we are just banging our head against the wall about stuff that just doesn't connect with people because they don't care about this. And we're not the kind of people that will make them care about it. We've got to figure out a way so that they want to care about it. And that is, I think, the challenge before us, is how can we get people to actually care about not just what he's trying to do, but how he's trying to do it.
Yeah, that's why they don't teach history or civics anymore. If you just taught kids what happened in the 1930s with Hitler on one hand and Stalin on the other, this wouldn't be too hard to figure out. You know, just a few days prior to his election in 2008, Barack Obama promised to fundamentally transform the United States of America. He has fundamentally transformed it. It's not his fault, you know. Small and insecure men with diseased egos and delusions of grandeur have always striven for tyranny and dictatorship to get their way. And it's not the Constitution's fault either. The Constitution is perfectly designed to prevent tyranny so long as there was, in fact, a free press and a Congress fighting for its own power. Leftist utopianism has trumped both of these critical checks on centralized power. So join us for part 2, where we get to explore how bad things might get to be. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.